Hello, Internet friend. Today, a difficult topic, but one that we have to address. I'm David Ravel, and today, why there is no silver bullet and economic conditions may worsen. This morning, I had quite a shock when I opened my trash bill. Now, for nearly 20 years, I've hauled my trash bin down to the curb where the trash truck picks it up, and for all those 20 years, the bill has remained pretty close to the same. Oh, there have been some slight increases here and there, but nothing like I saw today. Today, a 20% increase, a surcharge for fuel, drove the bill to the highest level I've ever seen. It's not something that should have surprised me. We all know the reason. It's that conflict with Iran. By closing the Strait of Hormuz, Iran drove the petroleum prices worldwide. We all saw it in our own gas pump, and now my trash company is telling me the same thing. It costs more to drive their massive trash trucks around the neighborhood. Indeed, the price of diesel has risen more than gasoline. As this is written, the nationwide average cost of gasoline is $4.09, while diesel is $5.31 per gallon, according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency. So what's happening here from an economic perspective? The first thing we noticed was the rise in gasoline or diesel prices. This is what economists call a primary derivative factor. Gas prices rose because Iran shut down 20% of the world's supply. Less supply means higher prices. But now those higher fuel costs are having an additional effect. They're causing my trash company to raise its prices. That's a secondary derivative. Of course, this rise in prices will not stop here. My local hamburger joint, where I sometimes go to lunch, not too often, I promise, will also have to pay higher trash costs. And the hamburger stand will need to raise its prices to offset its rising costs. And I'm not immune. My household budget is being squeezed, and there's $20 less that I have to spend on something else. My discretionary income has declined. So the inflationary merry-go-round begins. Higher fuel costs equal higher trash costs, as well as higher fast food costs, as well as fewer dollars for me to spend. It's a vicious inflationary cycle and comes as no surprise to anyone who lived through the 1970s. Economically, we're living through an almost exact repeat of those dreadful 70s. Someone of my age, and yes, President Donald Trump certainly fits into this category, will well remember the economic pain of that decade's stagflation. Along with that generation, Trump ought to remember the anxiety of higher prices and declining productivity. He should recall the rationing and long lines at the gas pump that OPEC's oil shock produced. Shutting the Strait of Hormuz is just like the oil embargo by OPEC that sent the economy into a tailspin which took years to recover. While the parallels between 1973 and 2026 are similar in their initial phase, it now appears that we're headed into new, uncharted waters. The OPEC embargo was a discrete event. It lasted only 5 months, and when the negotiated settlement was reached, everything returned back to normal. The oil spigots were turned back on, and complete oil production was restored relatively quickly. Today, we're looking at a vastly different situation on several levels. Although we are now at the 5-month level in our own crisis, there is absolutely no indication that the president or his administration is anywhere near to a negotiated settlement. Most recently, the president threw out the Memorandum of Understanding, violating its basic premise by bombing Iran. To say the very least, this has made Iran more recalcitrant and less likely to come back to the negotiation table. So the first distinction to the 50-year-ago OPEC embargo is that there is no likelihood for a settlement anytime soon. This crisis will likely go far beyond the 5-month level of OPEC crisis, creating even more chaos for the economy. Now, another major distinction between the two oil crises is that the OPEC crisis did not include war. There was no damage to the wells or pipelines or refineries that provided oil and all its byproducts. This time is entirely different. There is extensive damage both to Iran's oil fields, but especially to the surrounding Gulf states' oil infrastructure. Currently, Iran has taken aim at some of the world's largest fields in Saudi Arabia, as it has done for all the surrounding neighbors. Restoration of the region's gas and oil production will no doubt take months, if not years. The damage is that complete. And the time it takes for restoration only begins when the hostilities cease. And as we indicated, that appears not to be any time soon. The final factor that will likely extend this economic crisis is my trash bill. That is, the secondary derivatives. When my trash company decided to raise my bill, it wasn't doing that on a whim or for additional profit. Indeed, it was reflecting its own economic pain. My bill increased by 20%, while the cost of diesel has increased by 33% during the Iran conflict. The trash company isn't gouging, although some may accuse it of that. It's not even reflecting its increasing costs. And this ever-increasing cost structure will continue through the third level of derivative costs, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and on and on. Remember, my local hamburger stand, that was the third level. This inflationary cycle, once begun, often takes years to defeat. And the inflation cycle begun during the OPEC oil embargo, and remember, increasingly it's looking like a lesser battle than the one we're currently in, took 8 long years before it was finally defeated. Under Paul Volcker, the Federal Reserve utilized a unique strategy of raising interest rates to astronomical heights. And as unbelievable as it sounds, the Federal Reserve raised its shortest maturity interest rates, the Fed funds rate, to 19.1%, essentially killing the economy. No one wanted to borrow. Much of commerce just plain stopped. New car sales plunged, as did home sales, retail sales, and virtually everything across the board. In economic terms, this was demand destruction at its highest level. In the end, it worked, but at a tremendous cost. It was the Federal Reserve's version of a nuclear bomb on the economy. Unfortunately, it was just the type of radical action that was required to stop this runaway inflation cycle of the 70s, an inflation cycle that closely resembles the one we are now entering. Now, the longer the Iran war lasts, the greater will be its derivative consequences. In the end, it all comes down to the president. In his hands, he controls not just the outcome of a brutal and bloody war, but the future of his own nation's prosperity. And that's ValueSide for today. For all of our articles and podcasts, visit valueside.com. I'm David Ravel. ValueSide is independently written and researched. The views expressed are strictly my own.